Have you ever had that feeling, like life moved on and somehow you got left behind? You try to be positive. You tell yourself, it's just a phase. I'll try again next week. But deep inside, there's this voice, small, quiet, but always there, whispering, maybe you're not good enough. Maybe it's too late. Maybe you're just not meant to speak this language. Let's stop right there. What if I told you the real reason you're stuck has nothing to do with your English? What if it's the story you've been telling yourself without even realizing it? This video isn't just about grammar or pronunciation. It's about power, your power. The power to rewrite the story that's been limiting you. The power to use English, not just as a language, but as the mirror where you meet the version of yourself who never gave up. The one who chose to begin again. And no, you don't need to be perfect, you just need to be willing. Because today, we're not learning English to pass a test. We're learning English to take back the pen, to look life in the eyes and say, this story is mine now. Let's begin. There was a time I thought I was just broken. Not enough, not smart enough, not brave enough. I walked through life speaking to myself in a language I didn't choose. I can't speak English. I'm not good at this. People like me don't succeed. Where did these sentences come from? I didn't write them, but I was living them. It took me years to realize something shocking. The voice inside my head wasn't mine. It was built from childhood comments, failures, shame, and fear. It was like speaking English with an accent I didn't even know I had. The problem wasn't my voice. It was the script I inherited. And every day, I repeated it, without even questioning it. Imagine someone hands you a book at birth and says, this is your story. And you just read it. Every line, every page, no edits, no questions. That's what most people do. But what if one sentence in that book said, I will never be fluent in English? What if you crossed it out and wrote, I'm becoming fluent, one word at a time? That's when things start to change. See, the real problem isn't that you believe in limits. The problem is you're fluent in the language of limitation. And like any language, it becomes automatic. The phrase, I'm bad at English, is just a sentence. You can replace it with a new one. I'm learning every day. Simple, but powerful. Like deleting an old program from your mind. The truth is, pain and identity are not the same thing. Yes, you failed once. Yes, you felt ashamed. But now you walk around saying, I'm a failure. That's identity theft, and you're stealing from yourself. Repeat after me. My story is not my label. You are not the name your pain gave you. You are the author now. Pick up the pen. Every time you say, I can't, your brain listens, it believes you, and then it builds a cage to keep you inside. The most dangerous prisons don't have bars, they have beliefs. Try this today. Instead of I can't speak, say I can try. That one word, try, it's small but it breaks the spell. Let me tell you something powerful. The story changes when the narrator wakes up. You don't have to change your whole life in one day. Just rewrite one sentence. I'm too shy to speak English becomes I'm training my voice to speak clearly. It feels strange at first. But that's how rewiring begins. Uncomfortable, then natural. So here you are, standing at the edge of a story you didn't choose and holding the power to change it. What if your first act of rebellion is one English sentence that sounds like freedom? Something like, I am learning to become who I was meant to be. Say it out loud. Because that's where authorship begins, and something deeper begins to awaken. If you want to stay stuck, here's what you should do. Keep blaming your situation. Say things like, I don't have time, I don't have money, or I was never good at languages. These sentences sound like facts, but they're not. They're just old recordings playing in your mind. What if you paused and asked yourself instead, what's my next small step in English today? Maybe it's shadowing one sentence. Maybe it's writing a simple journal entry. Progress doesn't ask for perfection, just a step. If you want to stay small, keep playing the same mental playlist. I always forget words. My accent is embarrassing. People will judge me. The brain loves repetition, even if it hurts you. But imagine this. You suddenly break the loop by saying out loud, I speak with courage, not with fear. The moment you say something new, the spell breaks. Your nervous system wakes up. And that's where growth begins. In the interruption of what once felt automatic. If you want to stay powerless, let your inner critic keep the microphone. Let the voices from your past, a teacher, a parent, a failure, narrate your present. But if you want your power back, say something in your own voice today. Say, I choose how I speak. I choose how I grow. It doesn't need to be perfect English. It needs to be your English. From your body, from your intention, spoken with ownership. If you want to stay broken, keep waiting. Wait for motivation. Wait for the perfect moment. Wait for permission. You'll wait forever. But confidence doesn't come first. Action does. Speak before you feel ready. Open your mouth even if your voice shakes. Start the sentence even if you forget the next word, because healing doesn't happen before the action. It happens through the action. If you want to keep feeling invisible, then keep hiding behind excuses. Hide behind long YouTube playlists with no action. Hide behind the fear of being seen making a mistake. But let's be honest, people aren't judging your English. You are. And the day you stop attacking yourself internally, others will stop doubting you externally, because energy speaks louder than words, and people feel your self-respect before they hear your grammar. If you want to repeat the same year over and over again, keep saying, maybe next month. That phrase sounds soft, but it steals your future. Next month becomes next year becomes too late. Want to break the cycle? Pick one phrase you've been afraid to say and speak it now. Something like, I am learning to express myself. That one line plants a new seed, and your brain takes note. If you want to keep feeling behind in life, then keep comparing yourself. Scroll through others' success. Say, they're lucky, they're smarter, they started earlier. That comparison game? It's the fastest way to stay powerless. But try this. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, just yesterday. Did you listen longer? Speak more clearly? Then you're winning. Quietly, consistently, powerfully. And if you want to live a story that belongs to someone else, then do nothing. Let the old narrative keep writing your lines. Or you can pause. Take one breath. Speak one line of truth in English. One line that no one gave you, but that you chose. Because the moment you do, something begins to shift. For years, she moved through life like a ghost. Not because she wanted to, but because life had emptied her. Disappointments layered over each other like heavy blankets. A lost job, a broken relationship, a constant fear that her best years were already gone. She didn't wake up excited. She didn't make plans. She just existed. And slowly, she stopped choosing anything. Not clothes, not dreams, not even her words. Until one day, something tiny shifted. It wasn't a big moment, no music, no spotlight. Just her sitting in a small room, holding an old English book, not to pass an exam, not to get a visa, but because she wanted to feel alive again. That was her small rebellion. For 5 minutes she listened to English, not to memorize, but to remember. Remember what? That she was still here, that her mind still worked, that a new language might lead to a new life. The first sentence she ever said out loud was, "My name is..." And strangely, something clicked. It was her voice, but it sounded new, like an echo from a future she hadn't met yet. That sentence became an anchor, something stable in a world that often felt like it was slipping away. Every day she repeated it. My name is... Not because she forgot her name, but because she was rebuilding who she was, word by word. She didn't tell anyone at first. It felt too personal, too sacred. But each evening, she'd press play on an English video, mimic the sentences and whisper along. It felt silly sometimes, but inside, something was growing. She wasn't waiting for someone to notice her anymore. She was noticing herself. That's when things began to shift. One morning, her younger cousin said, "Why are you talking to yourself in English?" She smiled and replied, "I'm not talking to myself. I'm practicing my voice." That small response, was a victory. Not because it was perfect English, but because she didn't hide. She was becoming visible, and visibility for someone who's lived in silence is no small thing. It's a revolution. She started taking little risks, asking for directions in English, ordering coffee with a nervous smile, starting a journal with simple sentences like, "Today I felt brave." These weren't just exercises, they were declarations. Moments where she told the world, "I'm rebuilding my life, and I'm doing it in a language I choose." It was clumsy, but it was hers. Then came the turning point. One night, a friend invited her to a study group. Everyone else spoke English fluently. She hesitated, but instead of saying, "I can't," she said, "I'll try." That night she introduced herself. She asked one question. She answered one sentence. And when it was over, no one laughed. In fact, someone said, "Your accent is beautiful." She didn't sleep that night, not because of fear, but because she had finally stepped into her own life. She realized something sacred. English wasn't just a skill. It was her first real choice in years, her first rebellion, her first form of authorship. And though she didn't know it yet, that choice would rewrite everything. Most people don't realize they've been trained to give up. It doesn't happen in one day. It happens in patterns, small, silent ones. You try, you fail. Someone criticizes you, and slowly your brain learns. Why bother? That's called learned helplessness. You're not lazy, you're conditioned. But the good news, conditioning can be undone. Start with one English attempt today that feels bold, like recording your voice saying, "I'm growing stronger every day." The brain is a storyteller, but when you live in victim thinking, the stories become twisted. One mistake becomes, "I'm always wrong." One moment of fear becomes, "I can't do this." And these are cognitive distortion loops, mental lies that feel like truth. Want to break them? Reframe one sentence today. If you think, "I'm too slow," say instead, "I'm learning at my pace, and that's okay." That sentence doesn't just change your mood, it rewires your brain. Emotion leaves fingerprints, especially the painful ones. Maybe you once tried to speak English and someone laughed or corrected you harshly. That memory didn't just disappear, it became an emotional imprint. And now every time you try to speak, your body freezes. That's not weakness, that's trauma memory. But healing starts with tiny exposures. Say one sentence today, even if your hands shake, even if your voice cracks. Courage lives in the attempt. Here's a hard truth. Victimhood feels safe, because if it's all someone else's fault, you don't have to risk anything. But that safety is a trap. Agency, the sense that I can choose, doesn't come from talking. It comes from doing. Choose one self-directed English ritual today. Maybe it's 10 minutes of reading out loud. Maybe it's repeating, "I deserve to learn." What matters is that you choose it, not fear, not habit. The most dangerous thing about psychological victimhood is that it looks so normal. People smile through it, work through it, but inside they've surrendered, not to the world, but to a story that says they're powerless. The first sign you're waking up. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What now?" That one shift takes you from narrative passenger to narrative driver. Sometimes victim thinking shows up in disguise. "I'm just not a language person. I'll never sound natural." These aren't facts. They're protective lies. They defend your current identity, but block your future one. Try this. List 3 sentences you say about your English, then rewrite them. For example, "I always forget words" becomes, "I am building my vocabulary, one word at a time." See? Reality didn't change. You did. It's not about denying your past. It's about refusing to let it hold the pen. You've failed before. You've been judged. You've stayed quiet. That's true. But it doesn't mean you are a failure or broken or voiceless. That's just where the last chapter ended. What if the next one begins with a single decision? I take authorship now, even if it's just for today. So ask yourself, what's one line of victim thinking you've been repeating in your mind like a prayer? And what if, just for today, you rewrote it? What if English became the practice ground for learning how to reclaim your power? Did you enjoy the content and it made a difference for you? Click on Super Thanks and support our work. You survived things that would have broken other people. You don't think about it much because you're used to surviving. But think about this, the version of you who's still trying, still watching, still reading, still whispering English sentences at night. That version is a quiet fighter. You didn't stop, even when it hurt, even when no one clapped for you. Maybe the world saw your silence as weakness, but that silence was actually resilience. Somewhere along the way, you began confusing survival with failure. If I was strong, I wouldn't have struggled this much. That's the lie. Struggle is strength in motion. Every time you opened your mouth and the wrong word came out but you kept going, that was courage. The tears after a failed conversation, that was growth. You've been powerful all along, just in a way the world doesn't reward. People often say things like, I'm behind, or it's too late for me. But look at what you've overcome just to be here. Look at the fears you face just to try. Most people don't know what it costs you to practice, to speak, to believe. So let's speak a truth today, one that matters. I am stronger than my past. Say it. Say it in English. Let your brain hear it in a new language and a new identity. Your dream life isn't waiting for someone to rescue it. It's waiting for someone to claim it. You won't get there by watching from the sidelines. You have to become the protagonist, the main character, the one who speaks even with a heavy heart. Describe your future in English as if it already belongs to you. Try, I work in an international company, I speak clearly. People listen when I talk. Feel that. That's not fantasy, that's a direction. Your whole life, you've been taught to minimize your effort. It's not a big deal. I'm not that good. But here's the truth. Learning English with fear in your chest is heroic. Watching videos at night when your heart is tired, that's not weakness. That's grit. That's the spirit of someone who refuses to quit. No, you weren't just learning a language. You were rebuilding your sense of self. Most people will never understand how heavy shame can feel when you can't say what you mean, how exhausting it is to overthink every sentence. But you've been carrying that weight and still moving forward. That makes you a fighter. Even if your English is still messy, your mindset is already brave. And that matters more than perfect grammar ever will. You were never a victim. You were a warrior no one noticed. And now that you've noticed yourself, the game changes. Every sentence you speak in English is no longer a task. It's a reminder. I'm still here. I'm still growing. I'm still becoming. You don't need to shout it. Just speak it. That's enough. That's powerful. And maybe, just maybe, English is not just a skill. Maybe it's the voice of your rebirth, the sound of the self you've hidden for too long, finally stepping forward. You don't wake up one day and hate yourself. It happens slowly, through words, quiet, sneaky ones like I'm not good enough, I always mess up, or I'll never be fluent. These aren't just phrases, they're code, an inner script that shapes your life. You speak them so often, they become invisible. But they're still running in the background, deciding how brave you feel, how much you try, how much joy you allow. Want to change your life? Start by changing the language inside. There's something powerful about words. They don't just describe emotions, they create them. Say, I'm nervous, and your body tightens. Say, I'm ready, and something shifts. It's not magic, it's biology. Your brain listens to every word you say, especially the silent ones. So here's a small action with big impact. Choose one English word that represents the person you want to become. Resilient, fluent, brave. Whisper it to yourself like a seed you're planting. Most people think learning English is about vocabulary lists and grammar rules. It's not. It's about rewiring. Every time you replace a sentence like, I'm stupid with, I'm still learning, you're not just being positive, you're building new neural pathways. This is called narrative recoding. It's like updating old software. And just like with technology, one upgrade changes how the whole system runs. Try this tomorrow morning. Before checking your phone, speak your chosen word aloud. Just one word. Say it clearly, with breath. confident, patient, capable. Let it echo for a moment. This tiny ritual might feel silly at first, but over time it becomes a compass, a guide, a new rhythm for your inner voice, one that knows where it's going. Here's the truth. You've been narrating your life from a place of fear. Most of us have. We speak to ourselves in warnings, doubts, and comparisons. But you deserve a story told with intention. You deserve to hear yourself say things like, I'm improving, I'm worthy, I belong. These aren't affirmations, they're corrections. They're how you bring your mind back to reality and out of old patterns. Some people say, but I don't believe those sentences yet. That's okay. You don't say them because you believe them. You say them so you can believe them. Just like you practice English to become fluent, you practice identity to become free. Every sentence is a step. Every repetition is proof that you're willing to rewrite the code, not just in your grammar but in your soul. And this is where English becomes more than a language. It becomes a tool, a paintbrush, a way to color your inner world with new possibilities. With every line you write, every video you shadow, every sentence you speak, you're doing more than practicing. You're transforming from the inside out. Because the life you live on the outside, it will always follow the story you're telling yourself inside. So why not make that story one worth living? Have you noticed something strange? When someone walks into a room with quiet confidence, not arrogance, just presence, people respond differently. They lean in, they listen. But when someone walks in carrying invisible shame, the world pulls back. Why? Because the way you treat yourself is contagious. If you introduce yourself in English like you're apologizing for existing, people will treat you like an afterthought. But if you speak with presence, even with imperfect grammar, something shifts. Confidence isn't about speaking perfect English. It's about signaling that you respect yourself. When you speak slowly and clearly, the room adjusts to you, not the other way around. That's called the competence illusion. People don't see what's real. They see what you show them. So try this. For 1 minute today, speak English slowly, as if every word deserves space. You'll be shocked how differently you feel and how others respond. Your behavior teaches people how to treat you. If you always say, sorry, my English is bad, what message are you sending? That you're fragile, that you need permission to speak. Instead, try setting a gentle boundary. Please speak slowly. I'm still learning. It's not weakness. It's self-respect. It tells the other person, I belong in this conversation. And more often than not, they will meet you where you are. Here's the mistake many learners make. They try to earn respect by becoming perfect. But respect doesn't come from perfection. It comes from self-honoring. The moment you decide, I will not shrink to fit this space, people sense it. It's in your eyes, your tone, your posture. And yes, even in your broken sentences, the real message isn't in your English. It's in your energy. Think of this like rebranding your reputation, not with others, with yourself. You've spent years telling yourself, I'm not ready, I'm not enough, and the world agreed. Not because it's true, but because you acted like it was. But now you're rewriting your inner marketing, and when your self-perception changes, the people around you start treating you like the new version you're becoming. It's the same with opportunities. They don't appear magically. They appear when you walk toward them like you belong there. Speak English like someone whose voice matters. You don't need perfect words. You need aligned energy. And that begins when you stop asking for permission and start owning the space you take up. Even in silence, ownership speaks. So next time you're in a conversation and feel small, pause, feel your feet, breathe, and remind yourself, I don't have to prove anything. I'm already enough. I'm here to grow, not to impress. A deal that one inner shift changes your outer posture. And that posture, it tells the world a new story, a story of quiet, grounded strength. Because at the end of the day, people will respond to the narrative you live. And if you rewrite that narrative, even just a little, the world will mirror it back. It always does. Who was writing my story before? She asked herself this quietly one evening. after practicing English alone again. The answer wasn't simple. It wasn't just people. It was fear. Shame. Old voices that said, "Don't try, you'll fail, you'll sound stupid." But that night she picked up a pen and wrote in English, "I choose my voice now." It wasn't perfect, but it was hers. And that made all the difference. What kind of story do you want next? Not the one where you're always catching up, always apologizing for your accent. Not the one where you're invisible in meetings or scared to speak up. No, you want a story with agency, with choice, with courage. Say this out loud. I create my next chapter with every word I speak. That's not a sentence, it's a door. And now it's open. What version of me is emerging? She wondered. And in that moment she realized, not the shy one, not the silent one. The version of her that's rising is the protagonist, the one who shows up, even trembling, even unsure. The one who speaks English not because it's easy, but because it's freeing. And with every sentence, that version gets stronger, louder, more alive. She remembered all the times she held back, stayed quiet, said nothing. Those moments still haunted her. But now she was doing something radical, responding, not to others, to herself. She stood in the mirror and said in English, "I am not waiting anymore." That sentence shook something inside her, because for the first time she didn't need permission to exist. A powerful truth began to rise inside her. My story begins where my victimhood ends. And when she said it out loud, yes, in English, it felt like claiming a country she had lived in silently for years. Learning English was never just about fluency. It was about finally hearing herself, unfiltered, unapologetic. Every word she spoke was a homecoming. Now, before bed, she had a new ritual. She didn't scroll. She didn't shrink. She whispered one sentence. I rewrite my life, one sentence at a time. Sometimes it was a journal entry, sometimes just one word. But each time it reminded her she is not stuck, she is in motion, and motion creates momentum. You don't need the world's approval to reclaim your power. You need your own voice, spoken in your own rhythm, in a language you once feared. The story doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be yours. That's where real strength comes from. Not from sounding flawless, but from finally sounding true. So go ahead. Speak the next sentence, not from fear, but from authorship. Because this story, it's yours now, and no one, not even your past, gets to write it for you anymore. You've made it to the end. But let me ask you something, not as a teacher, but as a mirror. What story have you been living in? The one where you're always behind, always apologizing for your accent, always watching others grow while you feel stuck in the same place? That story ends when you decide it ends, and every English word you speak from now on can be a word of liberation. This isn't about fluency, it's about agency, about reclaiming your voice, not just in English, but in your life. So here's a question for you. If your voice mattered, what would you say today? What's one sentence in English that reflects the person you're becoming? Write it in the comments. Say it out loud before you sleep tonight, because English isn't just a skill. It's a tool for rebirth, a quiet revolution. And this video was your invitation. If it moved you, if you felt seen, if a part of you woke up today, don't let that part go back to sleep. Subscribe to the channel, like this video, leave your sentence in the comments, and turn on the notifications, because your transformation has already begun, and we're just getting started.